Are we still waiting for someone?
Just looking here, I believe we are. Okay, got another one here. Got 4 attendees as of right now. And it looks like we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, call to order the meeting of the Civil Service Commission for the City of Tumwater. Go around and have introductions, roll call. I'm Blake Chard, the chairman of the commission.
I'm Pat Schneider, Commissioner.
Wendy Mowdy, Commissioner, new.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brian Hurley, I'm the fire chief.
Sean Kerman's Deputy Fire Chief.
Michelle Sutherland, Secretary Examiner.
Hi, my name's Evan Chin. I'm a lawyer at Summit Law Group, and I've been hired to represent the city on labor and employment matters. I don't represent any individuals, but I'm here to provide guidance on the civil service process if there are any questions this evening.
Is there anyone else online that needs to introduce?
Could you mute your microphones, introduce yourself so we know who's on?
Jay Mason with the Tumwater Police Department is in at the City Hall.
Hi, I'm Tim Rios with the Tumwater Police Department and the Vice President of the Tumwater Police Guild.
My name is Brant Baker, and I'm also with the Tumwater Police Department as a detective, and I am the secretary in the Police Guild.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
I'm asking the attendees if they would like to introduce themselves as well.
I'm Jim Moran, also Tumwater Police Department.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, is any proposed changes to the agenda?
I do have proposed changes to the agenda this evening. We would like to add a public comment between 4 and 5, so after the approval of minutes. And public comment, we do similar to a city council meeting. There's a 3-minute time frame for each public comment.
Okay. All those in favor of the changes in the agenda indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Agenda has changed. So we want that after the minutes.
Correct.
Has the other commissioners, have you had opportunity to read the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. The minutes are approved. We're now going to public comment. Is that correct?
Mhm.
That is correct. And
Okay.
how many public comments do we have this evening?
Two
Two?
that are here. I'm not sure if they're Jim online would want to comment or not.
Okay, is
Okay.
there anyone online that would like to comment during the public comment session? Okay,
Great.
all right, you two can go ahead, or you can each have the 3 minutes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, good evening, commissioners. As I said before, my name is Tim Rios. I'm a police officer with Tumwater PD. I've been here for about 7.5 years. I'm here this evening on behalf of myself as a recent applicant for the Tumwater Police Department Sergeant's Test and on behalf of the Tumwater Police Guild Executive Board. I took the Sergeant's promotional exam and I was one of the 4 participants that did not pass the exam. I'm not here tonight to be accusatory or to call anything like integrity into question, but I would like to propose an adjacent public comment to Detective Baker's in regard to the process that's been followed with this sergeant's promotional test. I'm aware that the city, that Michelle is the chief administrator, has provided a comment stating that the test scores and the testing process with attention to the direct score input would like to be validated. So I'd like to voice a personal concern with that. It's really just related to the fact that our scoring sheets for the sergeant's promotional exam were disposed of after the exam. I believe the testing materials themselves are still intact, but the score sheets provided by the graders are not intact and do not exist anymore. So my concern is that I'm not able to personally validate the accuracy of my scores that are reflected in my overall failing result. So, and a lot of my concern with that is really just around the fact that I can't verify it, and that there have been several errors throughout this promotional process. The errors that Detective Baker will go over in more detail in his public comment are related to the written exam, the promotional testing and closing dates, and the scores themselves that were put for the final result. So as applicants, we were additionally provided, our first step of this process was to take a written test in order to qualify for the oral assessment center. And the written test that we were provided was not the correct test. So all 7 sergeant applicants received the incorrect test tape. So at the completion of taking this test, it was decided that that test would be thrown out and that we would take the correct test that Acting Chief Mason had proposed and delivered to HR. The HR department is the department that provided us and proctored the incorrect test. So that does raise an error of concern for me, along with other errors as to whether or not the final scores were input correctly. The Tumwater Police Field does have an active grievance with the city. Let's just move forward to step 2 of the grievance process. Looks like my time's up. Detective Baker will explain some more of the finite details.
I was unaware of the 3-minute time limit, but I did put together a packet that started back in October, where at the time Commander Mason made an announcement for the sergeant assessment for the 2025 year. In that assessment, he said that the recruitment period would be the 13th through the 17th of December of 2024, with a written test on the 9th. And the civil service would be approving it on the 13th of February in 2025. We were told that there's a written test worth 20 points or 20%, 4 assessments that were worth 20% each, and also that would equal 100% of the test. The email came out late. HR came out with an announcement for us to go on GovJobs. They made the announcement saying that we have until Monday, December 15th. Just to note, December 15th was a Sunday. It was not Monday. Monday was the 16th. They proceeded to put the listing out there saying that the written test is January 9th of 2024, not 2025. They mentioned that in January 23rd of 2024, again, not 2025, was going to be the assessment test. There's continual typo errors between October up until this date. It was entered into either emails, dates that were put on here. They had a closing date that was listed as December 15th. One of the applicants was unable to meet that. They then reopened it for an unknown reason other than the fact that there's been so many dates of the closing time that they allowed that person to also reapply from the 15th to the 18th to be able to go through the assessment test. So they allowed that person in there, which eventually passed, which is great for them. And then to continue on to address some of the stuff that was directly inside of what was said about us going to talk to somebody and get assessment. I talked with Lieutenant Keelis, which was the part that I failed. His direct comments were to me is, I can't give any input. I don't know how these people graded anything. I don't know how you could have improved because I don't have any access to any of the grades any of the comments, anything involved with the test, because I was told that I can't be part of it. That to me is an option that I did not get to see. It also, in this, it says Rule 813, Michelle states that applicants shall be allowed a period of 5 business days following the mailing date of the notification examination results, in which they may inspect their answers, which we were unable, we did not see our answers. We didn't see the rating standards. We didn't have anything to do with that part of the examination for us to see it. Under Rule 820, it says all copies of the written examination should be kept, which I found out today that they do have that. They retain that and put that into Nat Geo. They did not destroy that part. All questions submitted by the examiner for the oral examination and the answers there too. We don't have any of that. And so based on those two things and what I've said about constant grammatical and input errors, I believe that this should be invalid.
Thank you for your public comment.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll go to the next item on the agenda. The formal protest report that was sent out to us for the sergeant's assessment. Michelle, will you take us through that?
Yes, I will. Trying to put it on screen here. Okay. So part of the civil service rules state that a report must be authored whenever there's a protest that was filed. We did have 4 officers that did file a protest in regards to these scores. They would be Sawyer, Smith, Tim, Rios, James, Moran, and Brant Baker. So this formal protest report takes us through the background of specifically the oral assessment that occurred on February 12th of 2025. So the background states there were 4 assessment centers. The first one was the oral resume. The second one was employee relations. The third exercise is community presentation. And exercise 4 was practical tabletop. According to our exam plan that was approved at the November meeting, each exercise required a minimum of 70%, a 70% score to pass the Sergeant Assessment Center. And this is the oral portion of the test. This is not the written portion. We did have Tumwater Police Department administrative and command staff acting as facilitators in the exercise. Each one was designed to assess specific competencies regarding the sergeant position itself. The candidates then received, there were 2 raters present in each of the 4 assessment centers, along with 1 Tumwater Police Department employee as the facilitator. There were 2 raters in each assessment center, all from law enforcement backgrounds. They rated the candidates. They gave each one a numerical score based on 0 to 100 for their performance in each of those 4 individual exercises that I stated and are listed on page 1. So this is, a descriptor of what the process looked like. We had 4 candidates begin rotating through the 4 oral assessment centers starting at 8:30 a.m. The second 3 started at 12:30 p.m. So at approximately 4 p.m., after all the candidates had completed the required assessment center exercises, all of the raters, facilitators, Commander Mason and myself met together in the break room at the Methodist Church. At that time, Administrative Manager Wool had corrected the score sheets from each.
Corrected or collected?
Collected
Okay.
the score sheets from each of the assessment centers, so, the 4 of them. There were 2 raters for each assessment center. She organized those sheets to make sure that the 4 assessment centers were separated. After she did that, she handed the score sheets directly to me by individual exercise. So I sat in the break room with other staff, Administrative Manager Wold, Commander Mason, and entered those scores on the rating sheets as they were presented to me directly from Administrative Manager Wold. I did that for each of the 4 assessment centers, so 7 candidates for each of the 4 assessment centers. I transcribed them from the score at the bottom of the rater's rating sheet onto an Excel spreadsheet. After those were all entered, it was determined that 3 of the 7 candidates in the oral assessment center had a passing score, which had to be over 70%, and 4 of the candidates did not pass each assessment center with at least a 70% in each center. So on Tuesday morning, the candidates that did not pass requested to meet and look at the scores that they received and get some input from the rating sheets. So I went over the scores with them from my Excel spreadsheet and then referred them back to the police department, to Commander Mason or Administrative Manager Wold to review the rating sheets. Because after I had entered those, they were handed directly back to Administrative Manager Wold. It was at that time Commander Mason discovered that the sheets had been destroyed after the assessment center was completed, inadvertently with some other things that were being destroyed at that time. So we found that we did not have the rating sheets to share with the candidates so they could, gain that feedback. And that is where we are at right now. The findings and conclusion, I state that according to Rule 8.13, the rating standard states that applicants, as they noted, shall be allowed a period of 5 business days following the mailing date of notification of the examination results, in which each may inspect their answers and the rating standards by which they have been rated during any part of the examination. The rating standards are actually not considered scoring sheets. So after a review of the rules, it's the city's determination that the scores on the eligibility list as presented with the 3 passing candidates will be asking for approval of those scores later in the meeting this evening. Did anyone have any?
Go ahead. Have any questions, Commissioner?
I guess one question I have is, do we have an action plan, like a corrective action plan in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again?
Yes, that is one thing. We're working on chain of command between the HR department and the police department to determine, where the rating sheets are kept and ensure that that never happens again.
Okay. And is there anything prohibiting these candidates from taking the exam again?
No.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Okay. So okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Quick question. Is this to fill an open position, or is this just to establish an eligibility list? Particular.
It's currently needed to establish an eligibility list for future expected openings. And actually, we currently have, with the retirement of Chief Wicks, we currently have an open acting position, which is a temporary position until we make some future determinations for filling our roles permanently. So there's 2 pathways going forward. We have an acting role that's currently open, and we expect to have permanent positions open in the near future.
Thank you.
So can we get some education on roles and responsibilities and for the commission and what we can and can't do?
Sure. So in terms of the commission's roles and responsibilities, as you know, as commissioners, your job is to have a fair and transparent process for the public, and so that there's no bias that enters into the selection process for important civil service positions, that political considerations don't enter into appointments for selection and promotion of officers in the fire service or police service. That said, you have some checks and balances that are allowed, including an appeal process that the Civil Service Commission can use if there's an appeal of the list that's certified today. That would be in rules 8.14, 8.15, 8.16. And then from there, there are appeal processes laid out in Rule 5. So I can share my screen quickly to give you an overview of what that looks like, just in case you don't have the rule book in front of you.
Just for those, I am turning to another screen to try to bring up those rules on my secondary screen, and I'm hearing everything that's being said.
Okay, so are folks able to see rules 8.14, 8.15, 8.16 there on the screen?
Can you make it any bigger?
I will try.
That's good, thank you.
Okay. So we are currently located in the 8.14 and 8.15 area right now. So 8.14, there have been protests made with regard to the development of the list. And we are now into 8.15, where Michelle, as a Secretary Chief Examiner, has looked at the protests and the errors and has submitted a report for examination to the commission here. Later, she will provide the applicant rank according to relative scores. And if there is a adoption of that list, there is a process here in 8.16 for an appeal to the commission. Previously, there was a question also about whether there's any bars to retesting. There are not necessarily any bars to retesting, other than a potential delay. And on the other side, there could be an appeal filed by the folks who did successfully pass the oral portion of the examination. They could possibly claim that there was no real error because this was more of a clerical mistake rather than anything substantively that was changed or different in this exam. But again, this is for the commission to consider as part of their process here according to the rules.
So what deliberations do we have that can we have time to read and understand better the report, or was there expectation that we would rule tonight?
I believe that's within the power of the commission to, if you need more time to review, that would be your option. You can do that now, or I believe you can make a motion to do that and continue that in another meeting as terms of your potential options.
Okay, is executive meeting inappropriate under these circumstances?
I don't believe there is an executive session carve out for this.
Okay.
In terms of, we're not looking at employee performance here necessarily. We're looking more at the examination process. So I think in terms of whether the process was done correctly, I think that should be talked about and discussed in an open public meeting.
Okay,
In regards to the typos that were highlighted in the public comment, do you know if they had any direct impact in regards to the testing process?
I do not believe they did. Not
Okay.
within the oral assessment center process. So we're looking at specifically the oral assessment center process, not the remainder of the written.
So if I could comment on that, I don't know if I can. The establishment of all the clerical errors that came out of HR from dates and times and when things were supposed to be done and how things were done, there's so many of them that I didn't get a chance to get to, that it creates a pattern of the fact that nobody double checks. And from my understanding, these sheets were handed to Michelle. She entered them into an Excel sheet and nobody else saw them. Nobody else saw the score. Nobody else double checked the score. And then those sheets were destroyed as far as the exam and anything else. So we don't know, not that she would do anything purposely or anything, but just based on, I would agree that none of these people tried to put the dates out incorrectly. They didn't attempt to do it. It just, there's no sign of double checking to make sure they are correct. And that's our biggest concern with all of this.
I would ask if are you saying that the clerical errors cause someone to not be able to go through this process? Or was there any of them that was so blatant that somebody says, oh, I thought I didn't have time to get it, or I didn't know that it was done last year?
Yes. So originally, when the original post came out in October from Commander Mason, the time period was December 13th to the 27th. Then when the listing came out from HR, it said that we could apply until December 15th of 2024, which they listed as a Monday. December 16th is Monday. December 15th is what the actual listing said on GovJobs, that said that you had to have your application in by 5 p.m. So one applicant did not follow that because there was 3 different listings for that. Then they came in and pled their case, and it was Commander Mason and HR decided that they would reopen it. So they sent that information out to the police department without a link to reapply for the rest of the department. And so the person that did get to reapply.
I opened this up for some questions, but it sounds like you want to get back into public comment and get every instance.
I apologize.
I already heard that, okay? And I see that as being remedied, and that didn't cause somebody not to have an opportunity to be tested. Is that correct?
That is correct,
Yes,
sir. We're just struggling with the fact that we cannot verify that there were no more clerical errors made in the.
Well,
final
I'm not worried about the clerical errors right now, because nobody's presented evidence to me that any of the clerical errors, except for that one instance, caused somebody to not be able to turn in an application, be tested, and go through the oral boards. So, I mean, that's my opinion. So I think we need to move on to the more substantive points that you brought out in your letter, your protest letter. So the other commissioners have any question on that point?
Well, I just want to confirm, I think the biggest issue is they didn't get a chance to, I guess, double check their scores. Is that correct? Is that really the crux of the complaint?
That is correct.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And nobody double checked that the scores were inputted correctly.
I assume that was part of the answer. So it evolves around the entry of the scores, and the only person that actually saw the scores inputted was Michelle. Do we have any indication based on any interviews of the examiners that would say that if they saw the scores, they would say they were incorrect? I would think that if I was on the oral boards for hiring police officers, and if somebody came in and said, I want to see my score, and they say, well, it was inputted and this happened, and I'd say, I would expect to have somebody ask me to come back and say, do these look like the scores that you gave? Just asking a question.
I transcribed the scores directly from the score sheets that were given by the raters.
And the raters were not re-interviewed
Okay.
for verification.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's what you're asking, Commissioner?
Yeah, so,
They were not re-interviewed.
okay. So any thoughts for the commission?
Well, I don't think we have any real direct evidence that an error was made, so it's kind of hard to make a decision because we don't have any evidence that it was made or that it wasn't made.
Is this outside of testing practices at all? Is this the same process that happened last time?
I was not here the last time they tested for sergeant, but I believe it is. The only error within the process was the chain of command with the rating sheets.
Do you mean like a chain of custody, Michelle? Like who they went
Yeah,
through?
sorry, yeah, chain of custody with the rating sheets. Thank you.
In other words, who had them and passed them on to you?
Yeah, that's chain of custody.
Yep, chain of custody. So they were passed to me from Administrative Manager Wool. I entered them. I can bring up the Excel spreadsheet too and share that with you as well. I don't know though if am I allowed to do that in open public meeting? Evan, am I allowed to share the score sheet in open public meeting for all the officers or not?
Well, I would not. I mean, that would be an executive session point in evaluating qualifications for public employment.
Okay. So the scores were transcribed from the rating sheets to the Excel spreadsheet, and the rating sheets, like I said, were handed back to Administrative Manager Wool and then inadvertently shredded, I believe, the next day instead of being retained.
Okay.
And are the numerical? I was just gonna say, are the numerical values like way off, or do are they kind of clustering, within a fairly tight range? And I know there's still that cutoff at 70%. I guess because I think if there was a transposition, the number may have been, way off.
There is a range of scores, I believe, between 50% and 90%, roughly, for the group of 7.
Okay.
Depending on how they did in each exercise, according to what the raters thought.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
And so outside of the numerical values, was other feedback provided to the candidates, qualitative feedback?
The candidates were offered to meet with each of the TPD facilitators for each of their specific exercises.
Is there,
so that they could review their scores and get feedback and be able to assess their I guess their overall evaluation?
They had the opportunity to speak with the evaluators and separately they were emailed their individual digital scores. I sent those out individually, and then they had the opportunity to meet with the specific facilitators if they chose.
So they received both qualitative and quantitative feedback.
I did not receive any feedback on my scoring.
Yeah, I met and did not receive any feedback because they didn't know the scores or what was scored or how they scored it. So they had no idea how they could give me feedback to improve or where I failed or what I did not do well or what I did great, because they had no reference to the exam and any summary or notes that were done by the examiner. It was just a score. It said 85.
Well, was it the assessor from the other agencies that you would have gone to? If someone in your line of command or someone that you work with that is a sergeant, you say that they wouldn't know what to respond to. So that would have had to been done with the people that did the evaluation, correct?
They were not given the opportunity to speak with the evaluators themselves,
Okay,
just the facilitators.
okay. Another legal question, that is that paperwork that should legally be kept under the Records Act?
Yes.
Okay. Comments before I look for a motion?
Do we want to table this to, the next meeting so that we can review the rules further? Is there any further, investigation that we as commissioners would like to, look at this point?
What can we do? I mean, we can't go out and investigate it and ask people further questions without doing it in a public meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to ask people to come in and then answer those questions. We can't talk about it amongst ourselves because that
Correct.
would violate the open meetings law.
Correct.
So if you could articulate, other than that, something that you think you'll find with a delay for a month.
I think I'm just opening it up to understand what the other commissioners, how they feel at this point. Do you feel that you've gotten enough information? It sounds like the candidates did have the opportunity to speak with the evaluators.
No, I don't think that was what was said.
Okay.
They had the opportunity to speak with the facilitators,
The
not the
facilitator. Got it.
evaluators.
Okay, got it.
So. Okay.
And just to be clear, the facilitators have no idea what the scores were. They didn't see the score sheets or how they were scored.
I understand that. Thank you for that.
I just want to make sure. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, you got any comments, Commissioner Moody?
It's Mouty. My only comment, I guess, what I'm considering is if this process is indeed the same as it was last time, there was also then room for human error to have occurred to establish the last eligibility / hiring list as well. And that process was not challenged. And it sounds, from what I'm reading, it sounds like this isn't the final decision. They have an avenue to appeal. So if we do approve tonight, they can then appeal, I believe, if I'm understanding that correctly.
That's correct.
So we're not shutting them down. I guess, I would want to know that there's a change moving forward to prevent this from happening again. It sounds like that was addressed.
Mm-hmm.
those are my thoughts on it, honestly.
Well, my thoughts are that, to me, the best argument to accept the petition as and award that is the fact that it was by law that those sheets should have been maintained. Now, my reasoning is there's a reason that those should be, or somebody in the legislature or other people had a reason to say that those particular documents need to be maintained under the Records Act, and they can't be destroyed unless it meets certain criteria. And so with that, I'm inclined to award or accept the petition and have them I would say that can we just have them do the re-evaluation? Or would they need to go through the whole process?
So long as the weighting stays the same, I believe you can go through the same process. If you were to redo the oral exam portion, it would have to retain the same weight as originally advertised in the promotional materials.
Okay. Well, that's my thoughts. So vote to your confidence or make a motion as you see it. Anybody prepared to make a motion today?
Well, I'll move that that we allow them to retake the exam, because I think that's what you're saying, right? But is there a way they can do it without having to go through the normal weighting process?
I don't understand what you mean by waiting process.
Well, there's a normal schedule as to when they would be retested, right? So given what happened, is there a way that they could take this portion of the exam earlier, without having to go through the normal process of when the next exam would be scheduled? Is that what you were indicating, Blake? Or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. If we do
Okay.
the awards in a reasonable amount of time, that the department can put together a board and have them do that. The other option is to uphold the actions of the city and move on. So please don't. I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other. We just got kind of in a quiet zone, and so I'm trying to budge it along. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just expressing my thoughts and feelings. If you have thoughts and feelings the other way, you should say it, and you should make a motion. And I'm not making a motion, but you make a motion for how you come down on this.
No, I was just clarifying what you were saying, because I'm in agreement with you. I would like to move that we have an expedited, or I guess that the testing schedule be rescheduled for those candidates within a reasonable amount of time so that they can retake that portion of the test.
I'll take that as a motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes 2-1. So we'll move on to the next one. Any questions? Okay. What's
Thank you.
the next item?
The next item on the agenda is, let me look here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commission. Thanks, Michelle.
The next item on the agenda is a formal protest report received from an entry-level firefighter candidate named Derek Shorey. He submitted a formal protest letter challenging his score during the speed interviews that we have. So in the entry-level firefighter recruitment process, one of the initial steps is to pass the speed interview with a score of 70% or higher. Candidate Shorey received a final score of 68.4. Following him being aware of what his score result was, he filed a formal protest of his score in accordance with Civil Service Rule 8.14. And moving on to the feedback from the panelists. The 3 questions in the speed interview, because they are speed interviews, there were only 3 questions. Tell us your personal story and outline what assets you can bring to a fire and emergency medical services team. The score sheets and the raters, their comments are here. They scored him at a 7, minimally qualified, as pertaining to his answer to that question. The second question was, tell us about a time when you helped someone. He again received a score of 7, which is minimally qualified. And the third question that he had to answer was, tell us about a recent experience that demonstrates your ability to work with a variety of people, especially people that may be different than you. And he was scored as a 6.5, nearly qualified. So with those scores, that averaged out to 68.4. So, looking at the findings and conclusion, the candidate was nearly qualified for the position. However, his primary weakness was the inability to effectively demonstrate strength or experience in working with people from diverse backgrounds. Given that the role heavily involves interacting with a diverse public, the candidate failed to demonstrate the necessary competency in this area and was rated as nearly qualified. Additionally, in other categories, the candidate did not provide sufficient relevant background, training, certifications, or experience to be rated higher than minimally qualified for a position in emergency services. So in conclusion, I upheld the panelists' rating and do not advocate for any changes to the candidate's score. And Derek Shorey did send in a formal protest, which is also attached. He requested a review, his evaluation and a reconsideration of his candidacy based on the merits of his responses. And again, that the findings, I uphold the panelists' ratings and do not advocate for any changes to this candidate's score. It should remain a 68.4%. So opening that for discussion.
Any questions?
Yeah, was this detailed feedback provided to the candidate?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
So this is his letter is the only input that we'll get on that side of the issue.
Correct.
Yeah, because I take it he's not online. He's not attending the meeting.
He could be on the public side.
Yeah, I thought he might be.
I do not see anyone on the participant side other than Lieutenant.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think the fire department provided very detailed feedback, and the candidate should take that feedback. And is there anything barring this candidate from applying again?
There is not.
Okay, well, my recommendation would be then that candidate can take the feedback and assess it how he feels fit. And if he wants to reapply, he should reapply.
Is that a motion?
I would make a motion that the candidate basically has the opportunity to reapply. and that the score should stand and the decision should stand.
Okay,
I
any
was-
discussion?
Sorry.
That's all right. All in favor, say aye. Oh, we
Aye.
need a second. I'm sorry. Was that what you were doing? Seconding it?
Yeah, she was
I was
seconding.
seconding during the, discussion. Sorry about that, Blake.
That's all right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay,
Okay, moving on to the status of the collective civil service eligibility lists. We have a new commissioner this evening, the status of all of the lists are listed on this eligibility listing. Every position that we have in each department. So the change for March of 2025 was that we have a fire training lieutenant. That was a new eligibility list established in March, and it extends through March of 2026. So that is the update for the status of the entire list.
is this one we need a motion to adopt?
This one is an update. We do not need a motion on this one. We can
Okay.
move on to the fire training lieutenant list.
Okay. The short list.
Mhm.
The short list. So we did have one person qualify for the fire training lieutenant in the fire department. So Jared Simmons was added to the list with an exam score of 80%. So we're asking for approval of this list to extend through March of 2026.
I move that we approve the list.
Second that, or sorry, discussion. Go ahead, Blake, ask for
Oh,
discussion.
no, we asked for first and a second, then we'll do the discussion.
Well, I'll second that then.
Okay, are we have any questions or discussion?
No?
Seeing none, I put the motion before you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now the long list.
Mhm.
Yes, seeking approval for the entry-level firefighter listing. This list has 29 new candidates on it. Asking for approval for the entry-level firefighter list to extend through March of 2026. I know they do have quite a few openings, and we do have Chief Hurley if you have any questions regarding this list here.
I just first congratulate you on your recruiting. I know you put a lot of work into it. It's you can see the results of it.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you. Yeah, we're pretty excited about the depth of the list. Yes.
And some great scores too. Yeah.
Any have a motion?
I move that we accept the list.
Have a second?
Second that.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Another long list.
Yes, we are seeking approval of the police officer entry-level list. Again, another long list for us, which is wonderful. We have 25 candidates total, and you will notice we do have some additions to the list. Looks like we have between February and March, we have 6 candidates that were added to this list.
All right. Same compliment to the police department, Commander Mason.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, excellent. I have a question. How does someone get above 100? I thought 100 was the top score.
That would be a veteran's preference score. So Stewart already had an extremely high score, and veterans preference points were added to that.
How much are veterans preference points?
It can be either 5 or 10, depending.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions?
Nope.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the police officer entry-level list.
Second.
I would second that.
Okay. I'll put the motion to a vote. Those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, we're moving on to the police sergeant eligibility list. These are the 3 candidates that did pass the recent Sergeant Assessment Center. We have Rachel Johnson, Peter Navarro, and Danielle Dawson. Each had a passing score. So seeking approval for this sergeant eligibility list.
Any questions?
No.
Motions in order?
I'll make a
Chair,
motion.
can I just,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm just a little confused. So this is the sergeant eligibility list that we just discussed
Mm-hmm.
on the formal protest. So I'm just a little confused how this goes together.
My assumption is that we can approve this list today and you can move on it. And when they get their scores, and if they pass the 70% mark, we can add them to the list and have another vote as soon after that process is done.
Okay.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Thanks
Any
for
further
the
questions?
clarification.
All right, seeing none, how about a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this police sergeant list.
Second. I'll second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm present it for vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Motion passes.
Okay. Our next topic is a class specification update for the Police Services Specialist 1 position for the police department. Seeking approval for the new language within the class spec specification itself. So for many years, the administrative staff in the Tumwater Police Department each held different classifications that reflected specialized job duties. They found over time that model wasn't working and requested an update to the class spec for the Police Services Specialist 1. Since 2019, the landscape of police administrative work has changed. It currently now reflects the duties that are clerical in nature and does not emphasize the legally required workloads that make up the majority of the daily work for the position. The updated PSS1 job description more clearly describes the relevant tasks of managing public disclosure requests, warrants, and civil orders, and law enforcement records dissemination and retention. The Police Services Specialist 1 no longer has duties related to evidence. Instead, the evidence tasks are now the purview of a position created in 2020, the Police Evidence Technician. So seeking approval for this updated class specification for Police Services Specialist 1 as authored by Tumwater Police Department command staff who are familiar with all of the duties of the Police Services Specialist as they currently do them.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have, like I did with the prior, when we were going through the admin assistant versus executive assistant. So this is a change to an existing position. This isn't a new position. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is there a way, what I'd like to do is take a look at the old position versus this one and compare it, and just to understand what the differences are between the old job description and the new one.
So the old job description had, was kind of antiquated language, Michelle had indicated. In the old job description included tasks such as evidence management, which they no longer do, and other critical descriptors that either no longer are applicable or are applicable now. I guess my only request is that, by not approving this, it delays us at least another 30 days with moving forward with filling some of our roles. So.
Okay,
Roles critical to the administration of the police department, Chief?
Yeah, our role, specifically helping us move forward with some of our technology projects and our body-worn camera initiative.
Yeah, and generally when we receive a revised class specification, the Human Resources Department is comparing it to the previous.
Okay.
And especially within the police and fire services, we definitely do trust command staff that they are authoring it correctly with all of the current essential functions that the position is currently doing.
And is this going to result in a salary increase for this individual?
No, there's no salary increase for the class. It's just a descriptor modification. It doesn't change the salary banding or the salary scheme.
Okay. All right. So it's just a change of responsibilities, but no change in salary. Okay.
That's aligning them with the job that they actually are doing now versus what we had asked of them in the past.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the change of the job description.
And I will second. Okay.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, any updates? Who wants to go first?
Oh, I'll jump in. Really along the same lines as last month's update. It was mentioned that our training lieutenant John Kaler had retired. We had a good event for him at the end of February, and now we have a list approved tonight to move forward in the coming weeks to fill that position. And the downstream effects of that will lead to likely a firefighter opening, and we'll be able to use the list approved tonight and call the top 7 candidates in off that list for chief's interviews for that position. So very excited about that. Thanks for pushing those through. Our status of and this may be for Commissioner Maude, did I say that right?
Yes.
We're putting a new paramedic unit in service January 1, 2026, in conjunction with Thurston County Medic 1. So in December and January, we actually hired 10 additional paramedic firefighters. 5 of those basically were laterals and are back at working with us now after an advanced life support academy. And the other 5 are currently at a fire academy completing their fire training. And we'll see them back sometime in late June or July, and working towards getting that new medic unit in service January 1, 2026. So continuing to move forward with that. And that's my update.
Okay.
Congrats.
I'd like to tell you that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, congratulations on getting 5 laterals. That's great.
Yeah, we were very excited. Obviously, our training isn't as involved in long term as police, but it's still just Fire Academy 16 weeks. So yeah, obviously, getting folks already trained is very helpful.
Okay. Commander Mason.
Well, Commissioner, I was going to tell you that there's no report from the police department, but I couldn't do that with a straight face. There's a lot going on at the police department. Chief Wicks is retired, or is in the process of retiring. I have assumed the acting chief role, and then moved one of our lieutenants, Lieutenant Keelis, into the acting deputy chief position, which will create an acting lieutenant, which will create an acting sergeant position. So we will be working pretty intently with HR and probably your commission on several initiatives as we move forward. Additionally, this is pretty exciting for us, is we actually have 4 new officers in process, basically as of next Monday at our police department right now. So 3 will be going to the academy. 1 is an out-of-state lateral, which we're very excited about. And additionally, we expect to make another hire within the next month. So that will mean 5 new officers in training at the police department, which is by far the most we've ever had. So one of the reasons why you see the number you do on our entry level list is the fact that we've actually gotten 2 full staffing for a very short period of time. And we are going to begin chief's interviews and hiring going forward as positions open. So that's why you see the list as large as it is. And we're excited for the staffing level that we currently have. It's the best that we've had in many, many years.
Congratulations, Commander Mason.
Okay, good updates. Next meeting is April 10th. Do we have any conflicts in calendars?
Nope.
Guess I better check mine. I'm good. All right. So with that, we'll move to what's the next thing? The adjournment. Okay. Without opposition, I call this meeting adjourned. Okay. Good seeing you. See you again in a month.
See you next month.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a good evening.
Thank you.